Hi, if you're just joining us, welcome. We're about to get started in about 7 minutes. We have a lot of people here already, which is wonderful. Many of you have started to introduce yourself in the chat, which is great. But something I need to tell you is make sure when you type into the chat box, just above where you type, there's a little blue strip that tells you who you're sending the message to. So it might just say all panelists, which means I'm the only person and Ricardo is the only person who can see your message. So click that little blue strip and make sure it says that you're sending to everyone in meeting so that everybody can see what everybody else is writing. And so we can see where we're all from. Great, so we've got Katerina here. She is from Italy, great. We've got Patricia or Patricia here from Ontario. Awesome, we've got Karen here. Susan is here, Anna's here, Aurora's here. Gabriella's here, Oscar's here from Mexico City. Awesome. We've got tons of people here. Maria's here from Cancun. Enrique's here from Mexico. Welcome, everybody. So we're just getting started. We are also streaming live on YouTube. So just in case you have any trouble with Zoom, if for some reason you get kicked out of Zoom or Zoom is not cooperating, you can also watch us live on YouTube right now. Oh, Ellie's here from Toronto. Welcome. Mary Cruz is here. Giovanni's here. Great. So I just sent out the link to everybody in an email to YouTube as well, where you can watch us live. And I'm just going to get set up so I can see that chat as well for anyone who's participating on YouTube. So if you're just joining us, bear with us. We'll get started in just a few minutes. But for now, go ahead and introduce yourself. All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. We have a ton of people here, which is awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for introducing yourself in the chat. We have a ton of people here. We have Olga here from Mexico. Leonardo's here. Fabiola's here. Enrique's here. Lydia, Marcella, Nicholas, Francisca, Octavio. Awesome. I know I'm missing a lot of you, but we're really happy to have you here. So my name is Shannon Felt. If you don't know me already, I run an organization called TEFL Horizons, and we do free training and put out resources for English teachers. So we're very happy to be hosting this webinar, and we're partnering with IH Mexico, and we have Ricardo Fajardo here from International House Mexico.
Hello,
Ricardo, let's make
everybody.
sure
So thank
we
you
can
very
hear
much
you
for
okay.
joining us.
You might need to join audio, Ricardo, if you haven't already. We're having trouble hearing you. All right, let's try that one more time.
Can you now hear me? Let me see.
Yes, okay, other people can hear you. I apparently can't, so that might be an issue. Let me see if I can troubleshoot a little bit on my end. Give me 1 second. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to see if I can hear you now, Ricardo.
Yes, thank you very much, Shannon. So can you hear me there?
Nope, I still can't. Everybody, well, it's good that everyone else can hear you. It would also be helpful if I could hear you. Let me see. It might be something with my Zoom settings.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. Yeah, because thank you, team. Yes, thank you, everybody. I think that everybody can hear us both. Yeah, thank you.
There we go. I just heard you.
Oh, can you hear me there, Shannon?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
I
So
can hear you now. Okay, good. Hopefully that's our
that's
only
great.
tech hiccup
Yes, that's great.
of the webinar, but that might be optimistic. Okay, so we're just getting started. It is now 1 o'clock. I am here 1 o'clock Eastern. I'm Shannon Felt, for any of you who missed my introduction. I'm here with Ricardo Fajardo from International House, Mexico. And we are really excited to be bringing you this webinar today on teaching English online, specifically on building rapport with learners online and getting into some fun icebreaker activities, engaging communicative activities, and a little bit on tech basics. So to start, just a little bit of advice as we get started. It's a great idea to minimize distractions around you. We're going to go over a lot of information today. Feel free to take notes, and you've already been doing this pretty well, but you can use the chat box to interact with us and ask us questions throughout the webinar. We will be doing a Q&A session at the end. So if there's a question that you really want to make sure we address at the end of this webinar, feel free to use the Q&A session that you can see. It's on that same control tab that you have at the top or bottom of your screen. It says Q&A. That will save your question so we can make sure to address it at the end. If you put it in the chat, there's going to be so much activity there that it might get lost. And just a reminder, when you use the chat box, make sure you're chatting to all panelists and attendees. So chatting to everyone. If it just says all panelists on that blue tab just above where you type the message, then that means Ricardo and I are the only people who can see your message. So if you want everybody to be able to see your message, make sure you're chatting to everyone, and then we can all participate. All right. So if you haven't already, feel free to introduce yourself. Tell us what your name is, where you're from, where you are coming to us from now, and a little bit about what kind of lessons you teach or who your students are. So I see we have Stephanie joining us now. We have Claudia joining us from Mexico, Guadalupe from Mexico, Darlene from Calgary, Canada. Welcome. Awesome. Tons of people. Great. So our first activity, just as we get started, I want to show you this activity called Your Top 3. So we'll do this in the chat. I know we have people coming to us from YouTube as well, so welcome to all of you. So for this activity, what I'd like you to do is think of a top 3 list for you. So your top 3 favorite what? For example, I'm going to talk about my top 3 favorite desserts. And put that in the chat box. So I'll add my top 3 list to the chat box, which is my top 3 favorite desserts. What I would like you to do is add your top 3 list of whatever you'd like. So I'm doing desserts, so don't copy me, choose your own. You can do your top 3 favorite travel destinations, top 3 favorite bands, top 3 books, songs, top 3 favorite colors, whatever you want. Put it into the chat, and then find one other person's top 3 list, whatever happens to catch your eye, and add one item to their list. So make sure you say what the list is that you're adding to, and add one item. So add number 4 to their list. Okay, so let's see how it works. If you're on YouTube, hang tight. I'll be typing into the chat for you in just a second. Oh, good. We've already got some contributions. Okay, mine are added. Great. Remember to pick one and add something. Okay, great. All right, awesome. A couple people added to my dessert list, key lime pie. Awesome. Somebody added. That was Catherine. We've got top 3 musicians: Bruce Springsteen, Aretha Franklin, Lucinda Williams. Movies. Somebody add to top 3 movies. Dirty Dancing is one of my number ones too. That's awesome, Kathleen. Sorry, Zahra. Great. All right. So I think we're all warmed up. And for now, we just did a fun icebreaker activity. That brings us to Ricardo's presentation. He is going to tell us a little bit more about building rapport with learners online, specifically icebreakers. So let me pull up his presentation. All right, should be able to see that now. There we go. Okay, so I'd like to introduce Ricardo and I'll let you take it away.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. This is going to be a great adventure together. I mean, we like sharing information. I mean, in this time of quarantine, the best thing we can do is actually learn together. So thank you very much for joining us to begin with. So, and today we have this very important topic, guys, building online rapport with learners. How hard is this? I mean, sometimes we think it's actually very hard, but maybe it's a little bit, yes, easier than we imagine. So let's take a look at that. So we can move on. Sharon, I will be just indicating, just move on. Thank you very much for that.
Great.
So today we're going to be looking at 2 main things, guys. What it means to teach online, because sometimes, again, the concept might not be clear to all of us, and some practical ideas for developing rapport with learners online. This has been quite important question that some teachers have been asking all of us. Like, how do I develop rapport? Is it important to develop rapport online? We will see that today. If we move on, thank you very much. So first of all, I mean, this is a question, guys. What are the skills expected in learners nowadays? I mean, both face-to-face or online. Obviously, we expect our students to develop a number of skills, sometimes some micro skills or social skills. And yeah, we need to help them develop all these skills. So are we only teaching learners English? The answer should be no. Actually, we teach systems, we teach skills, but we also teach values. Some people have been telling me we actually teach them to be people, to interact with others. There are so many things that we can actually teach students nowadays. And this is not the exception online. So online, we can also contribute, guys, to helping students develop a number of skills, both language related and life related. Let's take a look at the next one. So, but today, I mean, we cannot focus on everything, unfortunately, guys. So we will need to prioritize, and today we'll focus on 2 main things: what it means to teach or learn online, and again, developing rapport. So let's move on. So let's now start. I mean, so first of all, what it means to teach online. Some people think that there are so many differences between teaching face-to-face and online. There are not too many. So to begin with, guys, we need to establish clear goals for the course. And this is the case for both environments. In both face-to-face and online environments, we need to make sure that we establish clear objectives. The clearer the goal, guys, your students will actually feel better connected and more committed to participating and succeeding in the course. Second point here is like getting to know your platform and practicing with your platform. And a question that sometimes we wonder, guys, is, do I need to be an expert? Nowadays, we need to work online and we say like, hey, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. Do I need to be a master in using technology? The answer is no, guys. There are so many tools out there, but you need to make sure that you choose, number one, the most appropriate one for the purposes of your lesson, and you need to practice. Like anything else in life, I mean, practice makes actually better, and you will feel more comfortable with using whatever platform or whatever tool you are utilizing online, and you don't need to be an expert. And then could be, maybe you think, hey, will I make mistakes while teaching online? Yes, you will. Welcome to welcome mistakes, guys. I mean, it's kind of common. It's natural to make mistakes, but didn't you make mistakes when you were actually teaching face-to-face? We all make mistakes, but that's how we learn. So don't worry too much, guys. Try to solve the problems immediately, but keep practicing. And obviously, guys, you need to plan your lessons catering to your learners' needs and interests. This is very important, guys, because if you don't know what your learners are interested in, it will be harder for you to plan accordingly. You need to get to know them. You need to ask them questions. You need to chat with them in the very first, maybe first 2 lessons that you have with them. Make sure that you are aware of their interests, their objectives, their goals. So actually the lessons they feel kind of are linked to what they are expecting to see. So let's take a look at the next one. And this is key, guys. Also to teach online, we need to establish rapport. And this is something that we will take a look at a little bit later on, but it's very, very important to establish rapport with learners. And again, this is something that needs to take place, guys, in the first and second lessons mainly, because then later on it might be a little bit harder. You need to connect with your audience, with your students almost immediately. And also you need to make sure that you are providing at some point in the lessons, guys, both verbal and written feedback. This is very important. But also you need to inform learners when this is to take place. Information is very important for students. They need to know that, for example, every 2 tasks, they will be given some feedback, or maybe at the end of your course, they will be provided with written feedback, or maybe after every speaking activity, they will be provided with some feedback. But it's important that they receive feedback. People want to make, they want to feel a sense of achievement. They want to know how they are doing, and they will keep being motivated if they receive appropriate feedback every now and then. Let's move on. So this is important, guys. So how do I develop rapport with learners? Is it too hard? No. But you first need to have an opportunity to introduce yourself and for learners to introduce among learners. This takes time, guys. Again, time is an issue, but you need to make sure, guys, that you give your students an opportunity to introduce themselves. Because remember that we are working with humans, guys. Even when we are working with technology, sometimes we say, hey, is the other person feeling on the other side of the line? Yes, they are. And actually, I mean, if you consider their feelings and emotions, you connect with people more easily. So you need to make sure that they get to know you and that you get to know them as deeply as possible. Obviously, guys, we don't want to be rather intrusive. We don't want to know maybe the very secrets, but we need to get to know learners. We need to make sure that we know each other to a certain extent, because again, this is going to contribute to planning, yes, producing materials that are going to connect with your students' abilities, needs, and interests, more importantly. Let's move on. So how do I do that? I mean, in the case of introduction, guys, it's very important that you keep the focus on the learners and the learners only. Yes, I mean, at some point, we also want to give them information about the course. We want to make sure that they understand what we are going to be doing in the course. But at the very beginning of every course, participants or the learners are the central focus of the course. So focus on them. I mean, even if you invest the first 2 lessons, you are not wasting time. You are actually investing time in getting to know the learners, which is going to contribute to the success of the course. And then go beyond asking students to share basic information. What do I mean, yes, with basic information? We normally ask like, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Yes, try to go slightly beyond. Again, we need to be a little bit careful, because obviously we don't want to talk about topics that might be a little bit tricky to talk about, but you need to actually ask learners more. Like, do you play a musical instrument? What do you do in your free time? What are you very good at? What do you hate doing? This will be, again, very important pieces of information for you to get to know the learners and for the course to be more successful. So get to know them, guys. Invest, yes, a couple of hours to know the learners. This is going to definitely pay off. And then some discussion starters, as including here, guys, are as follows. So we have some ideas. For example, and you might want to actually answer this in the chat box, guys. So what are you most looking forward to in this quick class? And let's call it like that. And what are you least looking forward to? So what are you expecting from this mini seminar, guys, this webinar? What are you expecting? So you might want to even chat there. And what are 3 interesting things about yourself that you would like to share? The second question is quite important, and it's an interesting one. It's like, what are three interesting things about yourself? Sometimes when we are working with students, again, they only perceive themselves as the learner, not the person, and they don't want to share. But if you actually push them a little bit to sharing, yes, what they like and what they do, this is really, really important, right? So guys, feel free to answer the questions, and I mean, that's okay. If you don't want to do it, I mean, that's fine, but feel free actually to contribute. Yes, and we can discuss some of the answers later on. So these are only some ideas in terms of how can I get my learners to talk about themselves. Let's take a look at some more examples.
Great. And just to jump in, I love this idea, Ricardo, because I think it doubles as kind of a needs analysis as well. The first questions, especially, you get to know the learners, but you also get some insight into, what they want to focus on in the class, or what maybe they don't want to focus on, or what they're intimidated by in the class. And then that can sort of help you plan the lessons as you go forward, in addition to getting to know the students.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we've got some great answers already in the chat. So Octavio is looking forward to learning about more resources. Maria is looking forward to learning about teaching online. Um, Anna learning about Rapport. Sarah says she's looking for some practical new ideas to make the online lessons more engaging. Tons of really great things. Great, guys. Thank you for
Yeah,
participating.
thank you very much for all the contributions. I mean, this is what online learning together is all about, guys. It's actually helping each other and contributing with our ideas. This is how we learn, guys. It's learning from
Exactly.
each other. And so, for example, here we have some more ideas. So, for example, say like locate and share 3 to 5 images, photos, drawings, etc., that reflect who you are. So this can be another very nice activity that you can actually do with your learners. You can actually ask them to do this prior to connecting. Yes, it's like identify some images that you think relate to your personality, that maybe define you, that reflect who you are, and it's going to be quite interesting. And usually, actually, the choice of pictures is quite fun to look at. So that's a good one. Another one is like, what is one thing you love to do and do well? This is a very good question, guys, because we all want to talk about what we do well. We don't want to talk about what we don't do well. So, but it's like, hey, I play the piano and apparently I'm very good at it. I'm very good at reading fast. I learned this technique when I was young and I read very fast, and so on and so forth. There are many things that we are very, very good at doing. And why not giving students an opportunity to actually share this with everyone? So in a way, again, I'm contributing to boosting, yes, the feelings, the emotions in the lesson, and that contributes to the success of the course, of course. So let's take a look at the next one. This is an optional one, guys. So give course credit for participation. Because some people might say, hey, wait a second, Ricardo, like obviously there are many other contributors to the to the course, but like if you give some credit for participation, like 5 to 10%, this is just an example, they might actually feel more committed to participating because they know that actually this will be part of the final score, the final grade. So this is a good option. I mean, take it or leave it, guys, but it's a good option to actually boost motivation. And the next point, please introduce yourself in the same forum, guys, because you need to model the expected and appropriate amount of personal information. When you actually ask your students, hey, you need to introduce yourself, they don't know how much they need to say. So as usual, guys, a very good example is appropriate. And if they actually listen to you, they have an idea in terms of the length, in terms of the content, in terms of the topics that you talk about. So this is a very good sample. Remember that giving students samples of tasks is always appropriate for clarification of the task itself and for them, again, to feel confident when doing the task as well. So let's move to the next one. Then obviously there are other methods, guys, to support ongoing rapport. You need to design discussion questions that encourage students to share relevant experience, guys. This is important. The kind of questions vary a lot, but you need, again, to encourage to share. The key word in this one is sharing. We know the saying, sharing is caring, and this is obviously not the exception in online lessons. So they need to share how they are feeling. They might want to even share how they are feeling at some point in the course if they feel that maybe they are doing less or more of what they were expecting initially in the course, if they are getting really familiar with the course content. So you need to design discussion questions for you to know that. Because sometimes when you ask students directly, guys, for some reason, some of us might be a little bit shy and we don't want to say things directly. But if you actually have a forum for them to share this is going to, again, to contribute to their sharing. They might not just say it too openly. So this is a good opportunity for actually students to share. And again, you have to assign students sometimes as facilitators of weekly discussions. This is a good idea as well, guys, because sometimes they don't want the teacher, or they are not expecting the teacher to do it all, or sometimes you, teacher, don't want to do it all. So why not actually give your students some of the responsibility and say, Shannon, so thank you very much. Yes, next week you're going to be, yes, in charge of the discussion. So they feel they have some power. So why not empowering actually students to do part of the course, so they feel that actually they are contributing to the success of the content of the course, guys. Let's move on. So this is massive as well, guys, planning your lessons. And this happens in both face-to-face and online environments. It's very important to plan, guys. This doesn't change. And our suggestion is to prepare materials for all stages. And this is not written in stone, but we suggest that actually you do at least one handout or a worksheet per stage. For example, a normal stage at the beginning of every lesson is a leading, which normally contributes to getting our students' attention. So you might want to just select an image, a very catchy image that everyone is going to pay attention to. And then that's going to be the leading to maybe initial questions or discussion that is going to then lead to the main content of the lesson. And so on and so forth. I mean, if you have controlled practice stages, if you have freer practice stages, please make sure that you have at least handout, because let us remember that most of our students are very, very visual, and they need to look at something. So, and maybe something to refer back to when they finish the lesson and they don't remember something. By looking at the handouts, the worksheets, they might actually remember what was said about that. And then if teaching grammar or functions, guys, please make sure you include a language analysis section. This is important. Obviously, we don't want maybe our lessons to be rather grammar heavy, but it's important to clarify language. If we want our students to develop a certain level of accuracy, this will be important. So they need to make sure that they understand when to use a piece of language, in which options not to use it. For example, if they are looking at functional language or functional expressions, there might be moments or context in which it's not a valid option to use X or Y expression. And guys, generally speaking, plan for less controlled practice and plan for more freer practice. Both are relevant, don't get me wrong. Yeah, some people might be thinking, oh yeah, great, thank you, Ricardo, I'm not doing control practice. It's very important, guys. I mean, because control practice is rather mechanical, but it's quite important to develop accuracy. But then freer practice is what our students need a little bit more of, especially in online environments, because they want to talk more, and we want to actually encourage much more speaking participation rather than analysis of grammar. So both are relevant, guys, but we suggest that you plan for less control and more freer practice, generally speaking. If we can move on. So part of planning, guys, is thinking about instructions. Oh yes, instructions. Those are those wonderful things that give us some headaches sometimes, because sometimes our instructions are very long, very difficult to follow. So you need to make sure, guys, that you plan for very simple instructions, and make sure that you demo this, because an example is clearer than words more often than not. So if you're giving an instruction and you think actually that the piece of instruction is clear, so anyways, check it, because again, in an online environment, something that is very common to happen, guys, is problems with sound. And even when your instructions are clear, yes, why not even asking our students, yes, the benefit of the doubt, and just ask if they understood. You can actually ask them to maybe have the thumbs up, or maybe just to nod, and you can actually take a look at them on the camera and say, oh, okay, they got my instructions. And then if you then provide an example, this is even better, because then again, they know exactly what is being expected from them. So it's very important to confirm that they understood instructions. Sometimes we kind of get a little bit rushy, guys, and we study activity, but again, maybe 80% of our participants or students understood, but how about the other 20%? What if their sound actually, yes, they were having trouble with it, and then they cannot do the activity. So before you start every activity online, you need to make sure that every single learner understood instructions. Let's move on. Um, and obviously, guys, I mean, again, you are not working with robots. Remember that we are interacting with human beings. And at some point in life, guys, we need to move. So you need to allow for sometimes a little like at 1 minute or 2 minutes, guys. So I want to see everyone stand up. Please stretch a bit. Yes, maybe grab your cup of coffee that you have next to you, because maybe they have even forgotten that they prepare some coffee for them to enjoy the lesson. So allow for some movement. We need movement, guys. I mean, it's natural, actually. It would be a little bit unnatural to be in the same position all the time. So this is normal in both environments. And give learners some breaks. I mean, not just for moving, but sometimes we need to recharge, our attention span batteries. Remember that sometimes even in face-to-face, it's like, oh, come on, it's like, it's been 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't know what the teacher is saying anymore. So I need a break. And sometimes we need actually to disconnect and connect again to be able to follow the content, yes, of the lessons more effectively. So obviously, this is something that maybe you want to negotiate with your students. If you have a 2-hour lesson, maybe you can have like 2 short breaks, or maybe just 1 10-minute break in the middle. This is something that depends on lesson length and something that you might want to negotiate with the learners. But make sure that you have a break. And obviously, we teachers need a break as well. So again, you want to have the refill of your coffee. Yes, you want to make sure that your children are okay, because nowadays we are working at home. So you guys want to make sure that your pets are not fighting with each other. So obviously we need a break just to make sure that the whole world is not ending, yes, as you are teaching. So you need a break, guys. And obviously you need to be ready to help learners when they get a little bit impatient. Working online is not easy. So obviously, this is something that also we teachers need to transmit, guys. We need to transmit that everything is going to be okay. And sometimes, for example, at the beginning, I mean, we had some problems with Shannon actually not being able to listen to me. And it's like, hey, wait a second, it's normal. It's technology. So don't get impatient. Try to solve it. I mean, everything is going to be okay. And sometimes your students simply get panicky. They say, oh, I cannot follow the lesson anymore. I'm not hearing. So take a look at the chat, maybe send the teacher, yes, a message, I cannot hear you, so the teacher can actually stop or get back to the previous main comment. But help learners, guys, because it's not easy, but if we teachers control our emotions and that impatience as well, again, this is something that is going to be transmitted to learners, and they will feel more confident and therefore more willing to participate. So let's move on. So, and start with general online protocols, guys. I mean, and by protocols is anything and everything that you want to actually do in your lessons. For example, first 5 minutes of the lesson, they need to have their camera on to say proper hi, and then later on, they might actually switch off their camera. We know that, for example, guys, when we have all cameras on, the connection needs more data, and it will be a little bit tricky actually to continue the lesson as effectively. So sometimes a very good idea to just have the audio. It also depends, obviously, guys, on the kind of lesson that you are doing. Sometimes you really need a video and you need to see them, especially if it's a speaking lesson, you need to see how they are interacting, yes, what they are doing, if they are taking notes for monitoring purposes. But if the camera is not necessary, allow them for the learners to actually switch it off. Or it could be part of the protocol. They know that the first 5 minutes they need to have it on, but then it's maybe optional to have it off, and so on and so forth. Another protocol could be, for example, that every single participant needs to have the microphone off unless being nominated to talk. Again, because we have these background noises when we teach online. So it's very common that sometimes like everyone is talking at the same time. So it's very difficult to follow the lesson in that way. So if everyone has their microphone off, it's easier to just allow some participants to talk at certain moments of the lesson and you nominate them. Okay, this is another idea, guys. So let's move on. And so we have just quick icebreakers, guys. And let's try and do them. Actually, you can do them on the chat box, guys. So this is one. For example, students think of one word that best describes, yes, who they are or something about their lives. Yes, for example, I have this challenge. It's my word because I like challenges. Yes, because we learn through actually, doing things that are difficult, guys. We normally don't learn that much when it's something easy. We need a challenge. We need the motivation. So we need something that drives, yes, all of our energy. So I'm going to give you that. I mean, we weren't going to stop there just for maybe 2-3 minutes, Shannon. I mean, they can actually write some of the answers to this on the chat box and we can reply to some of them if that's fine, Shannon.
Sure, there are some great ones already popping into the chat. We got empathy. Ooh, somebody said opportunities. I like that. Francisca said achievement. Catherine says curious. I love that one. Oh, they're coming in really fast. Guillermina says explorer. That's a cool one. We've got some participating on YouTube as well. Ada on YouTube says freedom. Timothy says read. Oh, that's great. Mario says adaptability. Stephanie says burnt out. Stephanie, you sound like a teacher.
Yeah, exactly. And I also read procrastination. So yeah, that's a typical one, I guess.
That's a good one.
But we see positives, happiness, we see bored.
No, bored. That's a good quarantine word.
Exactly.
Anna says patience. We have Jennifer on YouTube says adventurous. Mina says optimism. I like that. Idealist, Adriana. Great. Some really good ones. This is a fun activity.
Yeah, definitely. So as you can see, guys, and obviously this was just a quick 2-minute thing, but you might want to give your students like 5 minutes to think about the word, and then maybe you can get them into different groups and then they can discuss the words, and maybe some are actually common, so they can even have some follow-up questions after this, like, why did you write that? I mean, like, how does this relate to your family? How does that relate to your work? So this is a very fun icebreaker activity. So let's take a look at the next one. And again, as opposed to one word, it could be things. So you can change to something that students think is important for them. So it could be an image, or it could be an actual thing. Yes, an actual thing that they have next to them. So students find an image, or maybe they find and get an object that represents them. Yes, or why they are talking in the course. They're taking the course, sorry. So for example, yes, I can think of my phone, for example. My phone identifies me a lot. Yes, I have it here, guys. And actually, I'm taking a look at the timing here. And my phone is very important for me because nowadays, I mean, we have lots of information in the phone. It defines me in the sense that I'm always reading, I'm always teaching, using my phone for different, both professional, yes, and personal issues. So now, yes, it's your turn, guys. So let's do it quickly, guys. So what could be one thing that maybe represents you guys? And try to say why. Again, let's give Shannon 2 or 3 minutes and let's take a look at the options on the chat box.
Yeah, and I love this because if you have a small class and you have everybody on camera, you can, like Ricardo just did, or like I'm going to do now, share my item, which is a coaster, because this is one of my favorite souvenirs when I travel because they're very easy to find. Sometimes if they're not as nice as this one, I even just take them from bars, but don't tell anyone. And now my friends even know that I like collecting coasters. So this is one that my best friend brought me from her trip to Ireland. So if you have a small group, you can actually have the students show their object to the camera, and it's a fun way to feel more connected. Obviously, we have a very big group here today, and you can't all be on camera. So you can do, in that case, what we're doing now, which is just letting everybody share in the chat. And we're getting some really great responses. Barbara says her camera, video game controller. Oh, that's a cool one. Carrie says carnation, the flower, because that is my name in Greek. Somebody says my guitar, my e-reader. Aw, my students. That's a nice one.
Yeah, we have good options. I have a picture of me drawn by one of,
Good one.
ah,
Ooh, my banjo. I
okay.
love banjo music.
Just
That's
in
fun,
general.
Linda.
Yeah.
My briefcase.
Great.
Cool. Don't want to exclude the people watching on YouTube. We have Paulina's is my cup of coffee. Good one for a teacher. Paul's is my pen.
Yeah.
Good one. Great. All right. Very fun.
Okay. So let's move on, guys, and let's take a look at a different idea together. So work individually, and they need to think of 2 truths and 1 false. So students pose 2 truthful statements and 1 in the chat. I'm going to say 3 things, but this is meant to be written, but don't worry, I will just do it openly in the chat box, but like I will just simply say them this time around and try to guess right in the chat box which you think is false. All right, I will try to actually make a poker face when I say the 3 things, because otherwise you might actually be able to discover which one is not true. So number 1, I am married and I have 3 kids. Number 2, I have 2 pets. Number 3, I love teaching English. So let's see what you guys say in the chat box. So obviously you don't know me, I mean, and people who know me might immediately, maybe there are some people there that maybe might know me and say like, hey, I know which one is not actually true, but who knows? Oh, you know, so number 2 is false.
I don't
True,
know the
false,
answer to this
true.
either. I'm going to guess number 2 is false, but I don't know. I
I
hope
don't
number
want to
3 is
spoil it.
true.
2 is false. True, false, true. Okay. Number 3 is false. Oh my God. So actually number 1 is false.
Oh.
But again, guys, this is something that we're doing very quickly because obviously we have some time constraints in here. But this activity can take typically like maybe 5 to 10 minutes because they need to type and then they can actually discuss answers. They can actually create questions to make actually the person, yes, reveal the right information. Yes, for example, sometimes people get nervous when you ask them questions and then obviously, yes, that's the giveaway. It's like, hey, you got nervous when answering that question, so that's false. So for example, I was saying, oh, I'm married, I have 3 kids. Oh yeah, sure. Well, how old are they? Oh, and then I'm thinking too much, and obviously you can actually identify that that one is false. So this is a very, very good one, guys. I think we have one more. Oh, this is one of my favorite, guys. This is actually using your name. So this is an acrostic poem. So they can use their first name, or it could be maybe a name that is important for them. It depends on how you organize it, guys. It could be the student's name, or maybe somebody in their family if they are sharing information about their family. So it's somebody's name. And then they need to write their name vertically, and then they need to actually use the letter to start a line or be the main word in the line. So they describe something about themselves. And let's take a look at the example we have there. I think is the next one. Yes, so for example, I have my name there. So it says, Ricardo, you can actually see it on the left. It's like, rarely do I go to parks. Instead, I go to parties. As I chat and communicate along with my family and friends. As I like dancing too, I rehearse this as much as I can during weekends or at least Friday night. Yes, happy emoticon over there. It's very important. So obviously, this is easier to remember because they will relate my name with something I said. So it's like, oh, so by remembering, for example, yes, maybe the C, I like communicating. Yes, maybe the D, they will remember that I rehearse during weekends and so on and so forth. So let's try this one out, guys. So I want you to use your name very, very quickly, especially those that have a short name, because if you have a very long name, maybe this will take a little bit long for you guys. But if you have maybe a short name as Ivan or Ruth, yeah, maybe it's easier. So let's give them, Shannon, some minutes to actually try this out. So produce, yes, kind of short, yes, information, short piece of information about you guys. Use your name as reference. We're going to give you guys 2-3 minutes, and when we're going to actually see some of this on the chat box.
Yeah, and Sarah just said the same thing in the chat that I was about to say as well, or Anna, sorry. Anna just mentioned that she likes that this can be adaptable to many different levels, and I totally agree. I think this is great because your example, Ricardo, is a little bit more advanced, trying to make a sort of one cohesive poem with all of the letters of the name. Or if you have lower level students, it would be great to just get them to write, one adjective maybe for each letter, or one word, even a noun, something that they like. So it's really easy to adapt to lower levels and more advanced students just by how much you ask them to do with this poem.
Right, or maybe it could be used as a revision as well, because sometimes you can even check how many verbs they remember. So it could be only verbs, it could be only nouns, it could be only adjectives that have to do with the initials. So yes, I mean, these activities are all kind of adaptable, as you were saying, Shannon. So it's actually a very good option, yes, for every single level.
Yep. Oh, Paula has a great one. Perhaps all I do is overthink a lot about almost everything. That's a fun one. Yeah, some really good ones coming in. Let's see. Okay, Lucy on YouTube. Luck is my second name. I'm always looking up. That's the U. Confidence is something I've always had. And yellow is the color of my bathroom. I like that for Lucy.
Yeah. Great,
Oh,
guys.
this sounds like me. Crazy animal lover who rarely says no to chocolate, especially is it dark, and of course, ice cream with sprinkles. Yes, Christina, I'm with you all the way. Great, very fun.
Yeah.
I love this activity.
Thank you very much, guys. So as you can see, guys, obviously, we wish that we had like 2 hours to continue showing lots of ideas, guys. But when we prepared this presentation, guys, we wanted to be clear and to be maybe brief but effective at the same time. So we have very good activities for you to enjoy and use in your groups. So make sure that you use them. And again, guys, the more you try them, I mean, you will actually get familiar, and your students will get familiar with these activities, and you can exploit them, yes, to different levels. So thank you very much, Shannon. So I'm here with you anyway. So it's your turn to keep the conversation here.
Great. Don't forget, you can use the activity as well. One more idea to contribute. You can use that activity that we did at the very beginning with the top 3. That can be a fun one. And if you have a bit more time, you can get students to comment on each other's and add more and more to everybody's list, add one thing to each other person's top 3 list. And it's a really nice way for students to engage with each other. So you can add that to the list that Ricardo has given us, which is a really nice list, actually, a lot of fun stuff. Obviously, so just the things we've been talking about when teaching online, we talked a lot just now about building rapport and really getting learners engaged. So clearly it's helpful to have training like this. The more training you have, the more ideas you'll have. So we're really happy that you attended this webinar, and we have this series of webinars where we're going to be doing a workshop like this every Friday for the next at least month or so. So we'd love to have you join us for the rest of the series. It's also helpful to have, ideas like this for activities, resources. So the more training you can get, the better. And then something that was coming up earlier in the chat was basically how to find resources about grammar, because after you build rapport, you're going to have to teach the students something. So grammar is going to come up. So we'll talk about that in a moment. And then finally, to be successful at teaching online, you're going to need a lot of practice. So right now, if you're looking for more training to teach online, CELTA is actually happening still 100% online right now at IH Mexico. And I know, Ricardo, you can probably tell us a little bit more about that. But basically, IH Mexico is running a special right now on their online CELTA courses. CELTA did not used to be available completely online. Even the online CELTA had a face-to-face component. But right now, with everything happening with the coronavirus, that is not possible to be physically in person. So we do have an option for CELTA, which is completely online. Oh, and somebody says, I'm doing it now. How is it going? Let us know. So you do still get 6 hours of real teaching practice. It's just with online classes, your students will be online instead of in person, since it can't be in person. And that means actually that if you're looking to teach online, it's really nice because you get practice teaching online. So you'll be very prepared to teach online when you finish your 6 hours of online teaching practice on your CELTA course. The course is actually the exact same certificate, so it won't even say that it was online once you get your certificate. It will be the same as if you had done an in-person CELTA. And Ricardo, is it 1,400 US dollars? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that's right. And something to add there, guys, like as Shannon was saying, I mean, it's the same certificate, but obviously it will have a plus, guys. I mean, obviously we are all expecting the quarantine to be over ASAP, but as you are doing everything online, you will be now an online tutor as well. So, I mean, you will have your CELTA certificate, and then we can add the same CELTA certificate plus online practice already. So you will actually be eligible to work in both face-to-face and virtual environments or online environments. And now it's a plus because in the future, you never know. I mean, some universities and some colleges might want to actually contribute to some online courses, and then you actually will be eligible to work for them as well.
Exactly. Yep. So it's really great that you get the same CELTA training in terms of what to do in the physical classroom, but then you also get this additional benefit of some online training. And that seems, with or without this whole pandemic thing, that seems to be where things are moving either way. So great to have that. These are the upcoming dates if you're interested, and you can find these on the website as well. But if you're looking to sign up for the online CELTA course, you've got a little bit of time. There are a lot of options in terms of when you can take this. If you'd like to apply, we at Temple Horizons are actually helping out a little bit with the application process to expedite some of the application process. So you can apply through International House. You can also apply through us at templehorizons.com/CELTA online. So I'll drop that link in the chat also. Great. Oh, good question from Paula. Is there a limit for the online course? Do you mean in terms of the time frame or the number of students, Paula? All right, so as she's answering, we can move on. So if you're interested in grammar, because that is something that came up in terms of questions as we were going through this webinar, I know that the grammar part of teaching can be intimidating in general, but especially online, if you need to think about how to analyze language before you teach it, if you need some resources for teaching grammar online, we actually have an online grammar course. So Temple Horizons has put together, my colleague and I, we have an online grammar course called Be Your Own Grammar Guru. So this is also completely online. It's totally self-study, and it's a really nice resource for ESL teachers that you can use if you want to be a little bit more confident in your own grammar knowledge, or if you want to use this course to help students with grammar. So you can actually use this course as a teaching tool. So it includes 4 modules. We cover all of the verb tenses. So we do a module on the present, the past, the future, and then other patterns and structures. So these are typical things that come up like in common English lessons and English course books. And it's divided into the simple, the continuous, the perfect, and the perfect continuous form of each verb. And then in that final module, we do used to, the passive voice, modals, and gerunds and infinitives. So if you are taking a CELTA course or have taken a CELTA course, you've probably realized that grammar plays a pretty big role in teaching. And if you're not super confident in grammar, then doing the CELTA, that's just one more thing on your plate that you have to learn, right? So CELTA candidates have found this really, really helpful in the past, that they don't have to go and study the grammar themselves. They can just follow this course in addition to CELTA, and then you feel a lot more prepared to teach your lessons. We've got a couple of questions coming up. So one question was, how about the accreditation? If that's for the CELTA course, it's the same accreditation through Cambridge. And Maria, there's no exam on the CELTA course. So the price includes everything you need, that 1,400 on the CELTA. Good. How long would you have access to the grammar course materials if you signed up? Forever. So once you sign up for the grammar course, you have access indefinitely. You always have it. Great. Okay. So a little bit more about this, how this grammar course works, how it helps you with grammar and how you can use it with students is that in each unit, we do a video. It's kind of a fun cartoon video that goes over the context, the meaning, and the use of each of the grammatical structures. So for example, the course will give you a little situation like this in which the grammar that you're learning is used in context. So you'll have this little scenario, for example, have you spoken to your boss this morning? And then we actually break down exactly what the grammar is and why it's used in that particular context, as you can see in the second picture here. Then we give you some CCQs. So if you've taken the CELTA before, you know that CCQs are a way to check understanding. So this does two things. It checks your own understanding of why we use that particular grammar in this case. And it also gives you CCQs that you can then use when you teach your students. Then we go over for each grammatical structure some common areas of confusion. For example, why do we use the present perfect in some instances, but the past simple in others? Like the example you can see here with I've lost my wallet versus I lost my wallet. That's a very common question that students love to ask and put you on the spot in the middle of your lesson, your teaching practice on CELTA or in your teaching career. And so we give you really good strategies for answering questions like that. From there, you'll get a quiz on each grammatical structure. It's not graded, but it's just meant to reinforce what you've just learned in the video, so you can kind of check your own understanding. Then we do a whiteboard lesson on form and pronunciation. So that's also a short video that you can watch. And this is where, if you're not super confident in the terminology, we just break down the form exactly as you would need to do in class. So we show you how to do that, as you can see here. Then you have a chart as well. So if you'd like, you can download this chart. It's a fillable chart. So as you're watching the videos, you can fill this in for your reference. This is also a really great teaching tool that you could just send to your students. You'll be able to download it. So if you'd like, you can just send this to your students and have them fill this out as they watch the videos. And then you don't even have to plan a whole grammar lesson. You've just kind of got it ready to go. And then finally, you'll have access to, it's kind of like a forum. It gives you a little writing prompt, kind of like a freer practice that lets you personalize the grammar, which will help you remember it going forward. You could also use these same prompts. I encourage you to steal them and use them for your students as freer practice or discussion prompts also, kind of like we talked about in the session today. And then finally, you get these downloadable PDF grammar reference sheets. Again, these are great for yourself, or you can use them for your students. All right, so basically, like I said, if you would like, you can use this to learn grammar on your own. You can also just show students the video. You can screen share, for example, in a Zoom class. You can on Zoom as well share documents in the chat. So you can share, for example, those PDF reference forms, those fillable worksheets, and let the students actually learn the grammar that way as you facilitate. So it makes analyzing language before your lessons and dealing with language during your lessons a lot easier. So all of this for Be Your Own Grammar Guru, as I mentioned, I think in response to a question, it's totally online, it's totally self-study. And once you pay for the grammar course, you have it forever. So you can just go to the online platform and access it whenever you want and download the materials and keep them as long as you want. You can also watch the videos out of order. So you can just pick and choose based on what particular lesson you need to prepare for or teach that particular week or day. Normally the price is $199 just for attending the webinar. So a thank you for participating in our free series. We'd like to offer this at $147 for everything. But IH Mexico CELTA candidates receive 50% off. So it's only $99 if you are currently taking or enrolled in the CELTA course with IH Mexico. Candidates or accepted candidates. So if you've just been accepted, but you haven't actually started your course yet, this discount would still apply to you. So if you are one of those people and you would like to take advantage of this, send an email to info@teflhorizons.com and you will be sent a coupon code so that you can get the discount. So there's a little bit of extras that you get as well. We have a little course overview video that just tells you how to use the course. You get a syllabus, and in case you're not quite to like the present perfect, past perfect, continuous level of terminology with grammar yet, and you want a bit of a review, we do like a basic terminology review and a glossary. And then you also get a membership in our Be Your Own Grammar Guru Facebook group. So if you'd like to ask questions or engage with us a little bit more, you can do that. This is what the course looks like. We use a platform called Teachable. So it's not the same platform that you'll use for the online CELTA, but it's very user friendly. Basically, once you sign up for the course, it will take you to a screen that looks like this. And as you can see, you have all the lessons and materials listed along the side. So you can just click and pick and choose what you want to look at. You don't have to go in order, or you can follow in order if you want to. All right, so I'll drop the link in the chat to register for the grammar course as well as the CELTA at IH Mexico if you're interested in doing that. The link for the grammar course is right here. And I'll stick it in the chat in YouTube as well. Or you can see it here on the screen, TOEFLHorizons.com/grammar course-webinar-special. Great. All right. And then if you're interested in the CELTA online with IH Mexico, you can go to TOEFLHorizons.com/CELTA online. Or Ricardo, there's, I'm sure the International House website as well would be a good place to get more information about that.
Yeah, definitely. If you go to International House Mexico on the webpage, or you can actually email directly to our director, who is Orlando Delgado. You can actually also send him an email to orlando@ihmexico.com. So those are the two ways in which you can get some more information about CELTA courses.
Excellent. All right. From here, let's move to Q&A. I see that we have some questions. So first question, will copies of these presentations be made available to us? Is that something you would like to do, Ricardo?
Sure. Yes, actually
Mhm.
what we can do, Shannon, I mean, I can send you the maybe a PDF version or the PowerPoint presentation version as it is, and maybe you might want to attach it, yes, as part of a TEFL Horizons materials there. So yes, I mean, but why not? I mean, because other teachers might want to actually share this with their colleagues. So yes, I mean, why not make this available?
Excellent. Okay, great. So you'll make the slides available. The recording of this exact session, so everything that we just did, it's being recorded right now, and I'll send around the link as well. So you'll receive an email to the link where you can watch this recording in case you'd like to go back and see the information again. Anna asked, what are some of the best ways to communicate instructions or directions and clarification for beginner or pre-intermediate students online? Ooh, thoughts about that, Ricardo?
So can you say that again?
Sure. So what are some of the best ways to communicate instructions and clarification with beginner or pre-intermediate students online?
Right. I mean, maybe, I mean, those people that actually have taken the CELTA course, I mean, we use short instructions, or sometimes we use just maybe short phrases. This is very important. For example, in the first lessons, maybe you can give your students a list of the commands or the instructions or what you will normally say in a lesson. Things like open your book, and maybe you can actually physically do it so they can relate to it. Maybe answer these together, and maybe you use your hands actually for them to identify that. So it's very easy, like short phrases, list maybe that students can refer to. Yes, so students understand and follow instructions more easily.
Great. Yeah, really good advice. I think somebody mentioned ICQs before as well, instruction checking questions. Basically, those are very short questions you can ask to clarify that the students understood the instructions. Those still work online.
Absolutely, I agree, Shannon.
Go
So, I mean, ICQs are important, or this is something that actually we also check in the session. You can demo the task. If you see that instructions are not clear, maybe you want to do the very first item. If you are solving an exercise, you want to do the first item together, and then you just say to your students, do the rest, something like that.
Yes, demos are very, very helpful. The more you can show instead of tell, the more clear your instructions will be. Teacher Darlene says, what is language analysis referred to in teaching grammar? So language analysis is basically what we mean when we're talking about meaning, form, and pronunciation. So it's the information that you need to know about the grammar that you then need to communicate to your students. So in order for your students to use a particular grammatical structure correctly, they need to know what it means, or in other words, when we would use that particular structure. So let's say the present perfect. They need to know why the present perfect is used and in what contexts or situations we would use the present perfect. So why do we say, I have been to Paris versus I went to Paris? Why do we use I have been to Paris? What do we really mean when we say that? So that's meaning. They also need to know the form. So they need to know how to correctly structure the present perfect. They need to know that we use the subject with have or has, and then the past participle. And then they need to know pronunciation. So they need to be able to say that correctly, putting the emphasis on the correct words. They need to know that we can contract certain parts of certain structures, like I've been to Paris versus I have been to Paris. So language analysis, it refers to basically your study of the grammar, your preparation of the information you need in terms of the grammar before you're prepared to teach to the students. That is intimidating for a lot of teachers because, for native speakers, we often didn't learn this stuff. Or for non-native speakers, maybe you're concerned that, you might make a mistake with it, or, because you had to learn it, that it can be pretty challenging. So that's where either you need a good solid grammar reference book that you can use to sort of study up on that stuff to prepare to teach, or you could use an online grammar course like the one that we offer at TEFL Horizons, which will just walk you through everything you need to know about all of the different structures.
Yeah, thank you for that, Shannon. And basically, it's something that is very important in every lesson. And we both today, guys, show in a way that is important. As part of my presentation, we mentioned that you need to make sure that you provide some language analysis. And when Shannon was presenting the materials that they have produced, I mean, they have this analysis of question like, I've lost this versus I lost this. When did that happen? I mean, is this something that is true in the present? So language analysis is very important, guys, because sometimes, again, we just want to maybe prioritize fluency, but accuracy is just as important. So we need to make sure that we provide our students with some language analysis.
Exactly. Good. We have another question. What happens if the students don't have access to printers to print out handouts? Some students are using their cell phones or might find it difficult to see shared documents online, etc. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we can expect at this point that a lot of students don't have access to printers at home, right, to print out handouts. So I would say you would probably want to experiment with sending Word docs that the students could just type into on their screen and they don't have to print. I would encourage students not to be following lessons on their phone and to be using computers instead, but that's maybe not something that you can always control. So in that case, you might recommend that students have a piece of paper or a notebook available and they can just write down their answers if they're looking at the materials on their phone. Anything else you would add to that, Ricardo?
Yeah, I mean, I agree to that. Definitely a computer will give them some better tools actually to follow lessons and to maybe even, there are some websites that allow maybe to convert some PDFs to Word and vice versa. So, but that's only mainly in computers. So definitely using a computer will be a better advantage. Yes, or as opposed to using your mobile phone, because usually we have fewer features on mobile phones to use, especially when you're taking lessons.
Yeah, definitely. I think Google Docs would also be a really interesting thing to experiment with. You could send the students a link to a shared Google Doc that everybody could type into. And then as the students are typing into the doc, if you're sharing your screen of that document, the students should be able to see the responses that they're typing in coming up in real time that everybody is adding, which would be pretty cool. Great. So we answered, Linda had a question about language analysis as well, but we just talked about that. Oh, Min asked, this is an interesting one. How would you do freer practice and peer check in an online environment? Ricardo, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now, for example, one of the options that I have been using in Zoom is to use the breakout rooms. This is a feature where you can actually group students, guys, and then you can actually monitor. This is very helpful because it gives students some sense of privacy. So they are actually using the target language, and then you can actually be monitoring and giving them some feedback immediately. And then you can actually invite them to come back to the main room, so to speak. So using breakout rooms is a very good option online for them to use or to do some freer practice, I think.
Yep, that's a great idea. You really can still do pair work by using those breakout rooms. So I would encourage you to play around with that if you haven't already. It's a little bit clunky just because it takes some time to switch back and forth from the breakout room feature back to the main room, but I think it's well worth it, and certainly better than not doing that and giving the students that time. Is there a possibility we get an attendee diploma? You know, it might be useful for our coordinators. Sure. Yeah, we can put together a certificate of attendance for this webinar. Absolutely. Are you going to run a fully online option for Delta Module 2? That was Sarah's question. Ricardo, do you know if IH Mexico is doing anything with online Delta modules?
Not at the moment. I think that Cambridge just allowed us to do the CELTA online, but Delta is quite different. So, for example, we were planning to do a Delta starting in May, but because of the quarantine, I mean, that's not happening. And unfortunately, we needed to move that all the way to September, October. So unfortunately, Cambridge have not actually allowed centers to do Delta, at least not for the time being.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Another question from Sarah, is the grammar course suitable only for adults or for young learners and teens as well? It would work for young learners and teens. A lot of the context is, it features adult. I mean, it's certainly not like adult themed or anything like that. It's very appropriate. There are some contexts that are like in a business environment, like in an office or at a restaurant, but it could easily apply at least to teens or older children. It would be fine with young learners, but it probably just wouldn't be, it's not geared towards very young learners. So it wouldn't be super engaging for them or super relatable for them. Um, but at least for the video part where you're talking just about the context and the meaning, theoretically you could use it for any age. I would probably recommend against getting super into terminology with very young learners. So you probably wouldn't want to use the form videos for younger learners. But for adults, teens, that would work fine. Daniel has two questions about online learning. So number one, what do I do when a student is having a technical problem or technical problems? I don't want to sidetrack the class, but I also don't want to abandon the student. So that's the first question. Thoughts, Ricardo? So dealing with technical issues that one student is having without, just totally derailing your class, but also not just sort of leaving the student hanging.
Sure. I mean, one of the features that actually you can use, guys, I mean, if your learner can still see the chat box, as you can see, actually, we can direct the messages directly to that person only, and the others will not actually be able to see this. You can give some instructions to that person in order to solve the issue that he's experiencing, or at least what we could do, I mean, is maybe to ask the other students just to wait a little bit, yes, and talk to that person, yes, but the chat box is very useful because it gives some kind of privacy. You can send messages to very specific people, so you can actually help them solve the problem at that very moment.
Great. And the other question was, how do I monitor during a solo writing or reading task? I guess I could use the Zoom hand raised feature, but I'm not sure I want to spend the time teaching that. Something I've done, Daniel, if the students are on camera, you can kind of monitor that way. You can just sort of see when their heads are still down and they're clearly working, or when they kind of start to look up and look around, it means that they're finished. But you could have some kind of policy in place where, when you're finished, raise your hand or type okay into the chat or something. If you don't want to deal with extra features, if you just want to use the chat, you could do it that way. And then you can see how many, okays you get before you want to move into the pair check. Would you agree with that, Ricardo?
Yeah, definitely. And something, I mean, so they don't get that distracted. I mean, we need to be careful with the time that we give them to do some tasks, because if they are doing writing and we give them like 10 more minutes than expected or than needed, obviously they will actually get distracted easily. So we need to make sure that writing is very well focused and we know exactly the length and what we're expecting from learners. So for example, if they're writing 80 to 100 words, maybe you say you have 8 to 10 minutes. This is just an example. And then you are sure actually they will actually maximize the use of this time to do the writing. I mean, that's what I think might work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that idea about setting clear time limits as well, so that the students aren't surprised when you suddenly move on. They can kind of pace themselves better that way. Bernice asked, what rules would you set for a Zoom class with children 9 years old? if you'd like to talk a little bit about this, Ricardo, feel free. We also just recorded a podcast episode that's going to come out on Tuesday, which is all about teaching young learners. Berenice, if you don't mind waiting a little bit, if you listen to our podcast episode on Tuesday, I talk with Andrew Watson, who is a CELTA trainer, and he gives a lot of great strategies for working with younger learners online. But Ricardo, if you have anything you want to add now, feel free.
Sure. I mean, my suggestion is to wait because obviously, I mean, this might actually send us to a very different topic entirely. Yes. But obviously, I mean, it's a very different environment. And just as an example, we need to make sure that lessons are shorter and instructions are short, and we use lots of visuals because we know that actually children love visuals more than adults, or they actually relate to them more than us. Yes, and things like that, actually, that's what you're going to hear, yes, in the podcast that has been recorded as Shannon felt. So definitely I encourage you all to listen to this once it's released.
Great. And I know there are more questions coming in the chat, so I will try to get to those. Thank you so much for being patient. I love all of these questions. It's great that we have so much interest and enthusiasm here. Okay, we have another question. This is an interesting one. How would you cope with an English language hater in your class? So maybe someone who isn't terribly interested in learning English, or maybe like a young learner who's not very motivated, I'm guessing is sort of what you're asking.
It's a tricky one, I know, but again, that's why we need to try to relate to learners. If we first try at least approach and get to know maybe even the reason why they don't like it, because sometimes if we don't know the reason, we cannot actually tackle, yes, the kind of the root problem. Maybe it was a previous experience. Maybe it was like it was even a previous teacher who they maybe did not like very much, but maybe we need to try to contribute to changing that perspective of English, or we can ask them what they would like to use English for in the future to try and help them achieve their own personal goals, because sometimes they think that we only have our teachers' goals in the classroom and we are not really helping them, yes, achieve their own personal goals. So if we in a way contribute to achieving their personal goals, like, okay, so tomorrow we're going to take a look at a language for video games. For example, if you're teaching teens, and that's why he hates English, because teens hate maybe grammar and they want to understand their video games more, maybe you can have a session that is kind of more tailor-made or more personalized to their likes, so to speak. So in a way, you can adapt materials and they will feel, I think, more willing to participate, I think.
That's great. Really good advice. We have another question. What's the difference between the grammar books and the grammar course you mentioned? So grammar books, there are tons of them out there, right? And there are some very good ones out there. I really like Betty Azar, Understanding and Using English Grammar. I just like the way she breaks things down. Michael Swan has a very famous book called Practical English Usage. Let's see, Rosemary Aitken has a book called Teaching Tenses that's really helpful. So there are a lot of good grammar books out there, but they're books. So you need to flip through them. You need to, find the index or the table of contents and then search for the particular structure that you need to study or prepare. And that can be tricky for teachers if you're not super confident with the terminology already. An obstacle there is sometimes you don't even know enough grammar to really know what you need to look up. And then once you look it up, you just have a lot of terminology, and it's sometimes hard to tell which parts of it you need to communicate to students and which parts of it are kind of just for you, and how to communicate all of that to students in the most clear and engaging way. So I guess that's the difference between grammar books and the grammar course. The books are really great reference tools, but you kind of have to know what to do with them and how to use them. And it can be a little bit tedious to have to page through lots of different chapters and lots of different books to find the information that you need. So my co-founder of TEFL Horizons and I, we're both CELTA trainers as well, and we've spent lots of time working with English teachers. And we created the grammar course in response to our teachers, in training, to what we saw that they needed. We saw them getting frustrated, flipping through tons of different grammar books and not really getting the information that they needed. It was boring. It took a long time. The grammar books didn't really give them any help with the students. Like, it gave them the grammar knowledge, assuming they could interpret it, but then it didn't give them anything else in terms of, okay, now what do you do with that knowledge in the classroom? And what happens if a student asks you a tricky question and you're not really sure how to answer it? And even after they would do hours of studying grammar books, they would still feel put on the spot by students' questions. So we created this grammar course to kind of streamline all of that and curate all of the information that you need in one more engaging platform. So the difference is you have these videos that cover context and meaning. We give you CCQs. So that means we give you questions that you can ask to the students to check their understanding. We give you materials that you can use to sort of test yourself and help yourself understand the grammar. And then you can also turn around and use those same materials to help your students understand the grammar. So it's kind of like everything you need in one place, already laid out very clearly for you that you can then turn around and use in your classroom if you want to, whatever way you want to. So it's meant to take most of the guesswork out of learning grammar yourself to make you feel confident in the grammar, and then to take a lot of the stress off of you in planning grammar lessons for your students, that you already have all of these tools and resources that you can then use once you understand the grammar with your students as well. So hopefully that clarifies a little bit. Another good question, would you recommend doing exams or progress tests in the class online or for homework?
I can take that one, Shannon. I think that
Sure.
both are okay, as long as students know. I think that it's important for the students to know when and how they are going to be assessed. So you might actually give them access to PDF files or Word documents like Google documents, and they can actually write their answers. So it could be either at that very moment, it could be something on the spot, so actually checking what they have understood in the same lesson, or it could be after a series of lessons. I think that both apply and both are okay, as long as students know how they are going to be assessed. But I have actually used both. Usually, more often than not, we normally use more like not exactly at that moment, because some students might not, I don't know, finish processing all the information of the session. So sometimes it's a better idea just to have one every 2 or every 3 sessions. Yes, maybe it could be even homework for them. So that's something that is negotiable. But again, what really matters is that the students know how and when they're going to be assessed.
Great. Another question on the grammar course. Does your grammar course include photocopyables and worksheets? Yes, it does. It doesn't include like controlled practice exercises per se for students. So it doesn't have a ton of different worksheets, but it does include a fillable worksheet on the form. So as the students are learning the form, they can fill in like subject plus auxiliary verb plus, main verb and past participle or whatever structure you're teaching. And then it does include prompts online for you for freer practice that sort of causes you to use that particular grammar in that unit that you could then use with students. It also, for each grammatical structure, it includes a PDF, so a downloadable, printable, photocopyable PDF reference sheet. And they're really pretty. I can brag about them because I didn't design them. My colleague did. She's really great with visuals, and I've never seen a grammar book that presents the information in a way that is so visually pleasing. I can try to go back to that slide to show you the example. They kind of look like this. I know you can't see it super close up, but it has like these sort of stylized timelines, and then even like little boxes down here that I know you can't read, but this is like a little, hey, this is a thing that students generally get confused about. Here's a really clear explanation. So it has that as well. All right, Teacher Darlene says the free Zoom doesn't allow screen share in breakout rooms to do online pair work. That's right. And we've been thinking about that a lot. And I just found out that you can share documents in the Zoom chat, I believe. So I think a way to get around that would be if you had something written on a document and you sent it to the students before putting them in breakout rooms so they could download the document and have it on their screen, like for reading text, for example, that could be a way to get around that. I don't know if you have any other suggestions, Ricardo.
Yeah, I mean, that's a solution actually I have used myself. I mean, if you know that
Mm-hmm.
some things will not be shareable, what we have been doing, for example, is that to send all those pieces of materials like 1 hour prior to the lesson, so they have time to download it, access it, have it ready in their computers. Yes, so they can actually use it as you teach.
Great. So we need to be very careful about timing and unexpected situations that might show up, right? Right. Kind of like you do in a physical class as well. There's just a tech element added to online teaching. Um, is there a CELTA refresher course for teachers who already have a different certificate from 10 plus years ago? Not an official CELTA refresher course at this time, no. But I guess, Darlene, it would depend on what kind of certificate you have from 10 plus years ago and what you want to do in terms of your teaching and certification now. So, I mean, depending on what your certificate is, it might be time to just get a CELTA. And I would say the cool thing about doing CELTA online now is you're getting something different. You're getting this online training as well. But if your certificate is letting you do what you want to do now in terms of finding jobs and you feel like you don't need a lot of new information, then maybe what you have is okay. I don't know what you might add to that, Ricardo.
Yes, I agree. I don't think they need anything new unless maybe there is a very specific I don't know, tool that some colleges might be asking for. But I think that what they have at the moment, I mean, should be okay for them to be eligible to work almost anywhere.
Great. Yep. Yeah, good. Patricia, to add to the questions on the grammar course, do we have permission to photocopy or print materials from the course? Is it copywritten, or do we need to contact the company before duplicating materials? Right, so my colleague and I created it. We are happy for you to print and photocopy materials to distribute to your students. We don't have a problem with that at all. Obviously, you can't sell the materials, please. Please don't grant other people full access to the course who haven't paid for it. But in terms of just downloading the worksheets or the PDF reference sheets and distributing them to students, we have no problem with that. That's sort of why we designed it, so that you could do that if you wanted to. All right, I have a concern about wait time. I mean, the time that students need to process a question or do a task. Should it be extended more than the time we allot them in physical classrooms? Interesting question.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that what really matters is that they understand what the task is about. And obviously understanding that we have given them sufficient time to understand the task. And maybe if we have demoed the task ourselves, it should not be that different. But anyways, I mean, considering that maybe a person listening to you somewhere else in a different time zone, it can take like maybe 2-3 seconds for them to listen to your voice. I mean, there might be minor changes in time and length of task, but generally speaking, that's not the case. I mean, that has been my experience. But if you maybe add an extra minute to your task, I mean, that's maybe playing safe.
Great. And I think, like we mentioned before, if you have some kind of system for the students that you establish up front where, they type something into the chat when they're finished, or, have a system for what they do if they need more time, like, because you can't monitor quite as easily as you can in an in-person class, you could come up with some kind of system that you make very clear to the students up front and use that to sort of help you monitor who's done and who needs more time. Another question about error correction in online instruction. How should we go about correcting students online?
Again, this could be done through the breakout rooms. You might want to correct your students in a more private fashion. We can also use the chat box. We can just write the mistakes without saying who made a mistake. And maybe we can ask everyone to contribute to the correction. So, I mean, it could be on the spot, or it could be delayed after the whole activity is done. I mean, those options could work.
All right, great. Someone had a question, is the priority given to native speakers after CELTA completion too? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean in terms of job searching? That was from Moto G. I'll let you answer that while we go on to the next question. Let's see what else we have here. That might be it. Somebody mentioned can I please repeat the names of the grammar books and authors in the chat? Yes, I can do that. Oh, and Nicholas had a question. Maybe Ricardo, you can answer while I type the books in the chat. Nicholas asked, how can you really engage your students into this type of class? I guess online classes, you mean by this type of class, Nicholas?
Yeah, there are many ways to engage them. Again, we were suggesting only some options today. But definitely getting to know them, making sure that we use materials that represent who they are, making sure that we make lessons that are linked to their necessities. Yes, And using lots of gestures, for example, that has been very useful because sometimes you want them to really pay attention to you. So you might use more gestures, more visual support. Yes, those are general tools that help them, be motivated.
Great. All right. And one more question. Could you please share more icebreakers or warm-up activities? These 5 weren't enough. No, that's great. I love that you want more ideas. One thing I can tell you, so I have at TEFLHorizons.com/blog, there's a blog post about lead-ins. So those are going to be kind of warm-up icebreaker-y type of activities. They're not specifically mentioned in terms of online teaching, but you could adapt all of them pretty easily to teach online. One of them, for example, it's called quote or question. So you can use either a quote or an open-ended question. Like if it's a quote, make it something that's not going to be like really controversial, but something that's going to be a little bit polarizing, like might cause people to have differing opinions. And so you could put that quote maybe up on your screen and let the students discuss what they think it means, or if they agree or disagree. And then you could even get the students to compare their ideas in breakout rooms, or just sort of use that as an icebreaker for the whole class. Ricardo, anything else you've got up your sleeve?
No, I think that's fine, Shannon. I mean, I cannot think at the moment of anything else on that. But what we could do is like, I'm going to share this with Shannon, and you can actually take a look at TEFLHorizon.com. I have very good websites where I found good ideas about more icebreakers, and we can actually share this with you guys.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yes, I think that wraps up the questions. I apologize if I missed any. You were all very engaged in the chat, so it was moving very quickly. I think I caught everything. If not, I apologize. But if you would like to reach out for more information, or you have questions that didn't get answered, you can email me at info@teflhorizons.com. Ricardo, I don't know if you want to share any of your contact info in the chat, but I'll let you do that if you would like, or how you can be contacted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
What I'm doing is like, I'm just typing my email if they want to email me directly, and I'm going to type the email of Orlando, our supervisor, and you can actually contact us for any more information that you want.
great. All right. And thank you everybody so much. I'm seeing all of your positive comments in the chat. Thank you for participating. We had a blast. This was our first collaborative webinar together. So we're really, really happy that you all joined and that you were so enthusiastic and asked so many great questions. Thank you very much to all of you who attended, and stay tuned. As I said, we're going to do these every week. So next week, we have another webinar coming up. If you haven't registered already, you can go to TEFLHorizons.com/webinars. There you go. And register for the upcoming sessions as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for your kind time. I mean, thanks for joining us. And again, as one of my phrases is, sharing is caring. So definitely it was good to share ideas with you guys. And thank you very much for all the questions, because that contributes to improving our materials for future webinars. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Shannon, for the invitation.
And Ricardo, yes, thank you so much for being here and for such great ideas about building rapport online. All right.
So, thank you very much.
That's it. Bye, everybody.